This session is titled Redefining Customer Experience with AI, and we have some incredible speakers here today. I am so excited to have them on stage with us. I'll let our moderator introduce them, but let me give him an introduction real quick. We have a good friend, the managing director of the E14 Fund, Habib Haddad, who is going to be moderating this session today. He is at this point pretty much synonymous with MIT investing. The E14 Fund is a fund that we think of as very affiliated with MIT, in that they fund MIT startups across the board and others as well. But a really incredible fund and a great supporter of this conference. I think the first supporter, in fact, of this conference when it started many years ago. Habib is an amazing guy. He has done a number of interesting things, including, I don't know if I should say this, but he was part of the technology foundation that enabled a lot of the Arab Spring. And so I'll let people ask you about that later. But quite an interesting and amazing guy. Also, he sponsored a bus of 130 applicants that then turned into 30 PhD and master's students from MIT who got to come here. So to those who are in the audience, we're very excited to see you. If you meet some students, he's the reason that they got to come here after getting into maybe a 6-hour bus ride that was supposed to be 4 hours yesterday. They have made it. If you run into these students, please say hello. Any of these students in the auditorium here right now? We've got a couple here. Yeah, okay, I see some hands. Fantastic. Please say hi to them, and he's the reason that this happened. Without further ado, please take it away and let's learn more about customer experience.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you everyone for staying on to continue the topic of the last session. Maybe before we start, I'd love to actually turn it over to you all to say a couple of words on yourself and the company.
Hi everyone. Hello. Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you actually.
You can? Oh.
No,
Hello.
I can hear you.
All right. But Sami Shalabi, founder and CTO of Maven AGI, where we're building AI agents for customer experience, initially focused on the support use case. Before that, this is my fourth company. I was at Google for 12 years, and I was MIT Course 6.
I'm Jonathan Rosenberg. I'm Chief Technology Officer and Head of Artificial Intelligence for Five9. We're a cloud contact center as a service vendor, one of the big three. Just hit $1 billion in annual recurring revenue.
Whoa!
Very excited about that. And we are doing a ton in the AI space, building voice bots, chatbots, AI assistants, insight solutions for customers, as well as a platform for startups, like Maven here, that can build their bots on top of our platform. My history, I was the CTO for WebEx and Skype before this, and also MIT Core 6.
Hi, I'm JJ Zhuang. I hope everyone can hear me because I can't hear myself very well where I'm sitting. I am building a new startup focused on voice AI. It's brand new. It's a couple of months old. And before that, most recently, I was chief architect of a company called Instacart, and working on grocery AI. Before AI, I used to work in dumb software. We thought it was smart. And I built a company called Accountly, and we built a email and a calendar mobile app, and that was acquired by Microsoft, and then they rebranded our app to be called Outlook. So the Outlook mobile app, if you have any bugs, I'm partially to blame.
That's awesome. So we heard from the previous panel about kind of the danger or basically what AI has done, what the current tools of AI have done to the lowering the cost of demoing, and how easy it is to put something that looks interesting and dazzle some customers. But the next level is the enterprise integration is a whole different ballgame. Maybe I'll start with you, Sami. You've spent a lot of time as well at Google scaling large products, and you're applying the same methodology to Maven.
Yes. So at Maven, we're primarily focused on the support use case for large enterprises. This is folks who are dealing with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of tickets a month. And one of the things we've been kind of working through is how do we build a solution that deals with the scale? First, you have to build a quality product that essentially can deliver an experience at a very high quality and kind of create an experience that also makes it very clear what they are. But that's really part of the sales process. The thing we've been seeing is that it's so easy to create a demo. It is really, really easy to create a demo. And when folks start to look at the problem and try to make a buying decision, everything kind of looks the same. And as part of kind of thinking about scale, you need to not only start by actually thinking about the problem, but also educating your buyers around how do you deliver. If you're to adopt this technology, you need to think about it in terms of scale. And scale is not just, hey, it's a great proof of concept. You actually have to solve the problems of how do you integrate into all the various systems. In the case of support, everybody here has, it's rare to find someone, I had the best support experience ever. It's not that organizations are looking to produce a bad support experience. It's just a hard problem. There's a lot of turnover. On average, it requires at least 6 to 9 different systems to even figure out how to answer questions. So when you think about this problem at scale, you need to be able to integrate with all these various systems so that you're able to achieve a high level of quality. That's the first part. The second part is if you're trying to achieve the scale problem, you have to take at least in our case, we took a very metrics driven approach so that we're able to prove where the gaps are and kind of have a methodical journey to be able to grow. And examples that we've cited in the case of TripAdvisor, we're handling over 90% of their support volume without any humans. And that not only is just answering questions, but personalizing their responses and taking actions. And when you're dealing with scale and you're dealing with consumer stuff, security, the edge cases are like never ending. And just on a technical side, this stuff is hard to scale. It is really, really hard to scale. And we're seeing, when you're building software at a scale like a place like Google, there's a certain playbook of how you build the stuff, horizontal scale, stateless systems, etc. This stuff is exhibiting very new characteristics that it's actually been it's been a lot of fun, but very challenging because you have to think about how do you build a scalable system where sometimes the average response time is 30 seconds. So it creates a very asynchronous system that is really exciting to build.
A quick follow-up to you, Sammy, on this is, and I'd love also to bring in Jonathan into this, is your customers seems to have their own systems, their own kind of very different bespoke things that they've built over the years, a band-aid of different tools, and if they grew, and at some point then you're coming in and trying to integrate. How do you productize as a startup? It seems like it's a heavy lift even to think about an easy product that you sell for everyone that's replicable and repeatable.
When we started, we were very intentional to actually architect around this problem. Yeah. So one approach to building integrations and software is, I call it like the roadmap approach, where you go meet all your customers and then okay, which are your top integrations? And then you end up in this world where, okay, it needs to be on the roadmap and prioritize it. And then you kind of start implementing it. And then you end up in this state where every time if something's not on the roadmap, either you're moving stuff around or it's like 6 months out or 3 months out or whatever. So that's one approach. Another approach, and then one of the interesting things is as you talk to more enterprises, you just see some really weird stuff, a lot of weird stuff. And we kind of built a model where we completely decoupled our integrations from the core platform. So it's not a roadmap discussion. It's really thinking about the product from a platform perspective that allows our customers to kind of take control of their own destiny. And it's kind of this world that takes if I were to describe it, it's very similar to kind of Slack apps where you can build these apps and churn them out, and it's completely a different deployment cycle. And to kind of help facilitate, it's not a black box, it's their code. They can actually code review it, and we've kind of approached it in that model, and we actually use a lot of Gen AI to actually facilitate the development of these things. So we're able to churn out these integrations at an incredible fast clip.
And Jonathan, at the scale that you're operating in, you surely are facing, you faced a lot of, and you've figured out how to overcome those. How do you think about that problem?
Yeah, great question. So again, we're at scale. So as you heard, $1 billion in annual recurring revenue. A significant amount of that actually is AI. We've been selling AI solutions, voice bots, chatbots, agent assistants. Our voice bots and chatbots we've had well before Gen AI. The Contact Center has been trying to do automation and stuff like that for forever. Gen AI, I think, has actually accelerated that. So we've been doing both core contact center and AI at scale. What does it take? It takes a lot of stuff that's not obvious. And I'll share some of the things that are not obvious. First, it takes service and support. This customer-facing applications are really hands-on. You heard a lot about like integrations and technology. At Five9, we've built an enormous services organization to help some of the largest enterprises in the world get this stuff implemented and deployed. They often want someone to help them through this, and this is so important to them. Just dropping in a product and letting them figure it out and configure and implement it themselves, that'll work fine for your first 3 big customers. You will never scale with that, right? So service and support, not obvious. Second, on the technology side, not obvious, reporting. So for every feature in the cloud, it's like a mantra we have at Five9. Every piece of technology, every feature we build, we have to build as much reporting on that feature as the feature itself. Contact center is a data place, and customers need to see results and analytics. And so if you're not focused on reporting, you're going to be in trouble. The third one I'll leave you with is a pretty standard problem, which is sales. So getting into the enterprise market is really hard. Again, it's easy to land like a few big enterprise customers. Scaling it up is really hard. One of the ways people do it is they partner with folks like us. A little bit of a pitch. We have a pretty big ecosystem of startups that connect into our platform that do AI, bots, assistants, whatever. So talk to me afterwards. But what do we provide besides tech integration is a go-to-market channel. So don't ignore that part of it. Not technology, but it matters. So that's a few things to think about.
So tell us more about I'm curious about the service support piece. Have you built then tools to help scale that? Because it seems like it could be quite expensive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, our service and support organization has their own software development group that builds tooling that helps customers do this stuff. Like one of the hard parts, and you talked about it, is like integration with back-end API systems. Like we run into problems like, oh, this customer wants to build a bot, but guess what? The software that has the data is like built in 1993, and like we got to bring, and it has no REST API, right? What do you do?
And they use Outlook.
Yeah, right.
Bugs.
See, we got to bring in like an RPA partner or whatever, and it's an integration project, and we build tooling, and so there's a lot to get sort of the integration is another aspect of it that's really hard to scale.
Say more about the managing risks with your customers. Of course, Aditi earlier in the morning talked about trust being the single point of currency when we talk with the financial industry. How do you think about making sure that you manage that at scale, particularly as you start introducing more Gen AI tools for your customers?
Yeah, that's the big part is our customers going to trust it. And I'll say this, like, I think this is one of the big themes for this conference, right? I think the success or failure of generative AI in customer experience is going to hinge on one thing: managing the risk of hallucination. It's so easy to get. It gets back to the success of the demo. You can have an amazing demo that looks, oh my gosh, this is the best support agent I ever saw, right? But if it hallucinates 3% of the time and it lies to a customer, it gives them misleading information that makes that brand at risk, brands are going to pull back from this thing. And this industry, I think, is going to succeed or fail based on our ability to deal with that problem. Promise is great, but let us not ignore the risk. And there's this, I'll tell you a story. Did you guys see that Air Canada? Does everyone see this Canada Airlines story? Okay, this is what we have to worry about as an industry. Canada Airlines had a bot, and someone called up, and they had to cancel a flight because someone died in the family, and they asked, can I get a refund for bereavement? Right? And the bot says, yes, you can. Lie. Hallucination. Wrong. It's, oh, no, you can only, if it was like if you cancel ahead of time for bereavement, you get a refund, but not after the flight time or something, some nuance like that was lost in the bot. It gave the wrong information. The consumer sued the brand. Brand said, well, the AI, how can we be responsible? And the court said, you are. And they were forced them to give the refund. This article has made the rounds around our customer base and around enterprises who are now, and I don't want to be a naysayer because I'm a believer. We're investing in this technology. But again, this is what we have to solve to scale. We have to solve these kind of problems to where enterprises don't feel like they're putting their brand at risk by deploying this technology, exposing them to financial liability. Real problem.
So at MIT, actually, you've seen a bunch of these interesting science around uncertainty estimation in real time in your models and different ways at solving this. But how are you solving that? Is that something that you're doing testing ahead of time? Are you doing in real time? How are you thinking about that?
We're making a stab at it. We think it's hard. I'm sure, and again, I think it's a call to action for every startup. That's the problem you're working on. We're solving it with what we call the dial of trust, which is we're sort of combining a mix of sort of more narrow applications of Gen AI with like just limit it to this bit of the conversation. The rest of it will do traditional conversation flow, intent detection, sort of prior gen models that are much more predictable in terms of their behaviors. So allowing customers to manage risk by combining sort of old school style AI with new school style AI in combination. And then honestly, where we're seeing the biggest uptick right now in AI application and customer experience is co-pilot use cases, because there's a human in the loop. And when there's a human in the loop, they can manage risk. So we have an agent assist product. It summarizes the call at the end of the call for the agent. The agent reviews the summary, clicks to put in the CRM. This thing sold like hotcakes. And almost instantly, like half our install base put this thing in because of that lower risk profile. So managing this risk and yet finding ROI, and there's ROI and time savings, is really important.
Yeah, it seems like user experience is one way of like solving that, and I'd love to come back to that and talk more about user experience. But moving to JJ, you spent a lot of time at Instacart trying to kill voice, and now you're bringing it back. Say more about what changed and why you think voice is the way to go.
Yeah, I love that question. So, by the way, this is also related to scale, but from a flip side of scale, right? Because we all came from the world where for customer experience, customer service, it's all voice-based. This is why call centers are called call centers, not chat center, right? But the reason that we, very often these days, the vast majority of customer engagement now is moving to text chat-based is it's not because customers don't want to call. It's because voice calls with a live agent is way more expensive than through chat. It's probably like 80% more expensive. And so, as Javi mentioned, that when I arrived at Instacart first, our support to customers were all voice calls, right? And it was great. Customers loved it. But at the same time, the cost was through the roof. I believe at the time, if I remember correctly, we were losing about, on average, $2 an order. And certainly that's not sustainable. So I pushed the team, challenged the team to move 100% of voice calls, voice interaction, to in-app chat. And it was a great success for cost control. But at the same time, it's not, customers miss these experiences. If you poll the customers today, right, people believe that, because new generation people now all use text-based communication, it's asynchronous, you can multitask. That's true. But at the same time, if you really ask our customers, they all believe that if they want to solve a problem fast, or they want to have the ability to influence the outcome, they actually prefer a call, right? But there's a scale problem here because calls are expensive. So, you either have very high cost or you have very long wait time, or the support experience is just limited because, it takes time to train a very good operator, right, to be able to handle problems. So I think that, this is a problem, but at the same time, this is also an opportunity. This is why, we have a brand new startup focused on voice, and we see all the opportunities, right? Because when we talk to customers, and sometimes we say, okay, give us some sample recordings of your call center, their agent, how they handle customer service. After a while, we hear all the call recordings, and we ask the customer, how come that it's all the same agent? Well, it's because that's the best agent they have, right? Because if you think about the team they have, there's always going to be the top performer, somebody who's really, really good at working with customers. But there's also going to be people who are new to the industry who are not that good. So the AI's opportunity is we can actually make every interaction as if it's taken by the best agent, by the human agent, and we can actually scale that kind of experience, give access to people not only on every call instantly, but also 24/7, right? So that kind of scale of opportunity is really what drives us to build new startups.
Going back to Jonathan's question, I want to ask you, JJ. So Jonathan was talking about the human in the loop, helping kind of make sure to nudge the AI copilot in the right direction. In voice, it seems to be will be much more difficult to do that. or maybe I'm missing something, but the voice interaction is going to be the main point of interaction. As a human, there's no way of kind of getting a third person overseeing that and not nudging that, or maybe there is, and you're working on that in the background.
Yeah, good question. Because usually the routing, we actually talked about routing earlier. I believe it's Clara from Affinity, right? She talked about pairing the incoming calls with the right agent, right? So that you can optimize for a particular outcome, for a particular objective function. But that is at the call routing level, right? So what we strive to do is while we're building the interaction module for the voice interaction with the customers, we're also building the real-time quality assurance module, so that while the conversation is going on, while we are trying to detect, hallucination is certainly one of the big problem, right? Like in our world, hallucination is less about making stuff up that is just factually wrong. It's very often, not adhering to policies very well, right? It's like because we always provide the policy context to the AI, but sometimes it deviates, right? So how do you fix those things, right? So while you can also always tune the prompt, the guardrails, you also the other way to do it is to provide a oversight. And then the reason that we see the AI start to be adopted for production in the customer experience industry is because the problem spaces are already segmented into different tiers of agents and to handle different tiers of complexity, right? So we see the opportunity that in case in real time, a small percentage of the calls are not going the right way, we can actually intervene and escalate to a human agent.
You wanna comment on that? You seem like
On voice in particular. So I mean, this is something I'll say a few things if I may. Like the death of voice in the contact center has been predicted for the last 15 years. Once chat and email support has shown up, everyone said, "Oh, no one likes to call. Everyone likes to." And interestingly, when we look at our data, what we see is that there's been a huge growth in chat and email, but there hasn't necessarily been in aggregate. Now, there's some brands for which it's not true, obviously, but in aggregate, we actually still continue to see an increase in voice. And I ponder this all the time, like, why is it? And a dimension of it is to sort of relate to what you're saying. If we could get the cost down for handling a voice interaction, voice is actually much faster than typing for most consumers. And if it worked great, if it was responsive, people would love it. And it drives up demand. That's the thing that I think people miss, is that the lower that you make the cost and the more effective you make the interaction capability for customer experience, the more people will use it. And so you actually get a commensurate increase. So we've seen a lot of this phenomena where it hasn't sort of led to the end of voice. So people naturally like to communicate. We were born with these things, right? So I think we're still going to see this for a while.
Just a quick announcement. Sessions are running late, so the next session will start at 11:20. So you have time to stay with us in the room. You don't have to rush to that. Moving on, one thing that's, and we certainly have been thinking a lot about at E14 is kind of AI causing the automation of work. And where previously you had functions, well-defined jobs, now AI is taking tasks from multiple jobs. And that's causing a few shifts, one for the organizational structure on the other side, but also what it means to be a product developer, what it means to be a CTO, whose budget is it? And I guess at Maven, you probably have seen some of that. Like, where do you enter in the organization as a startup, and who owns that? And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and how you're taking advantage of the situation right now.
So kind of our focus is large enterprise, and we've been platforming as a large kind of like platforming the company to be able to sell in large enterprise. So, and I think there's been previous panels, you need to know who your buyer is, etc. One of the things you have to be very intentional about is what budget are you displacing? Money does not magically appear in organizations. You're ultimately displacing something. So you have to be very, very intentional about it. And one of the things we avoid like the plague is going after innovation budgets, because those are, and at a macro level, there's like I would say 20% of the money in support is in software. The rest of it is in human capital. So we've been kind of very focused on value-based pricing, et cetera, to be able to sell in large enterprise. Around one of the things that has been emerging as we've been selling is that you discover very quickly it's not a technology problem, it's a human problem. People need to trust this stuff. People need to think, I mean, when you go in and if you're pitching to the head of support whose promotion depends on them having a larger team, and then you're like, oh my God, we're going to get rid of everyone and it's going to be 50%. They're kind of like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job, etc. So we actually end up realizing that we have to somewhat be in the change management business and kind of help them understand how they can, because this stuff is scary. They think it's Skynet, is how to think about the future of their function. And the thing you realize very quickly is that support has never been the most important function, but is now evolving. It's evolving to being the organization that is training the future of the AI agents, which is now fundamental to the success of the enterprise. It's going to require some transformation, and its role is not going to be let's get a co-pilot, let's get a chatbot, let's get a voice bot, etc. It's going to be the platform that powers AI agents that's actually going to exist across the entire user experience, all the way from the product to how it's being supported, to how it's being sold, to how it's being managed, how it's being upsold, because at the end of the day, it's the same data. And what's really interesting about the support use case is in order to do it well, you get access to all the key systems. You get access to all the knowledge. You get access to all the CRMs. You get access to all the ability to take actions. And when you kind of put that together, what makes a support agent different from a CS agent or a salesperson? It's really it's the same knowledge, but it's kind of the problem that you're on. So you can start to remove a tremendous amount of friction. And when we kind of think about it that way, we're starting to see support's the entry point. There's clear ROI. There's a lot of financial pain that my colleagues here talked about, which makes it it starts to justify the ROI use case. But as you start to see successes, we're starting to see other functions just like, hey, I want some of that AI juice, and I want it in the product, and I want it in the user experience, and I want it to do my sales stuff. And so it's really we're viewing it's a really solid entry point that justifies the investment, and then the incremental cost becomes smaller, but it becomes an expansion opportunity that ultimately gets it to a place where it's a much better user experience.
I got to disagree with you somewhere here, if I may.
Go for it.
That's a good disagreement, though. You got your number wrong, I think. You said that if you look at the cost of support, it's like 20% is the software and 80% is the human labor. It's actually more than that. It's 10x for human labor. So we estimate, and again, this I think general, if you look at analyst reports, whatever, it's a $25 billion TAM for software, $250 billion on labor. So you talk about where I agree with you is you have to go find your budget. Yeah. That $250 billion in the customer support area, very, very juicy.
I want to ask you a follow-up question. I want to move to the audience. But Jonathan, one of the things that Samuel's talking about just makes me think about agents talking to different agents, AI agents, but then you talked about risk. And how do you think, at which point do enterprise will trust these agents to do actions on their behalf? Not just recommendations, but all the way from the customer support agent talking to inventory, talking to shipping, figuring things out, and coming back to you. Are we close enough? Or are we still very far from that?
I think that is the game to play. Like I said, is managing the solution risk to where brands feel comfortable letting these agents take actions. We will have early adopters. I think many of your customers are probably exactly in that category. You want to try now. There's going to be a curve of adoption, and you're going to need more and more accuracy and less hallucination, more and more control to get farther up that curve. I think this is very hard to predict because this technology is evolving so quickly. But I think that's it. That's what it's all about. The spoils will go to the winner who can figure out how to manage that hallucination risk and that move to the top of the curve.
That's a very clear message. JJ, one questions from the audience. How do you handle angry customers?
Well, yeah. I think that's this is one of the reasons why we want to start from voice, be voice first, because most teams are starting from the other side, right? And it's for good reason. The reason that we think voice is unique is, voice is a high bandwidth, high signal type of communication, right? So, it's we all have this experience, like when we call a business's customer support line. If we happen to be able to find a very understanding agent who is very good at their job, it's a very delightful experience, right? So we all have this experience that even when we're frustrated about something, a good agent can really sort of like quickly disarm you. And this is usually because of a call, right? It's a live conversation. It's much harder to do over text chat. And then
even for Gen Z, by the way, some question.
Hopefully, even for Gen Z, yeah. Gen Z sometimes they do call. I I have a daughter. Like when it's really
goes to MIT.
Yeah, she's at MIT, course 4, and usually she texts me, but when it is something really urgent, really important, she still calls. And this is the same with customers, right? And I think that the opportunity there is voice can communicate so much, right? It's like, it communicated this sense of understanding, sense of sincerity, empathy. But it is also a risk because, nothing really irks the customer than, let's say, fake sincerity, right? So if it is not done well, if you get the emotional part right, if you get the tonality right, but you get the intelligence wrong, it's doubly bad for customers. So, we actually need to really focus on all these aspects when you build a voice interaction. But, it's the most exciting frontier right now.
I'm guessing you probably are thinking, writing maybe on some social science, or even yourself are thinking about just what makes it better. Should the agent disclose that they're an AI agent at the beginning or not? Like, what are the things to lower down the barrier? I guess it's a very interesting problem to solve, that not just on the technical side, but just on the human side. Empathy is how to build trust and intimacy. Are you spending a lot of effort on that as well?
That's the biggest area we spend a lot of time on, and there are a lot of things to understand, right? What makes voice communication actually work? And on the question of, do we want to appear more like human? Do we want to immediately tell the customer you're interacting with a bot? We're doing a lot of experiment around this. And, the real world is pretty messy, right? Because, we need to deal with all kinds of situations. And people can very often tell whether they are interacting with AI, even when the AI speaks, perfect English, is sound human-like. Because when we launched with our first customer, the first few calls we were puzzled why people immediately think that they're interacting with AI. Turns out it's because when they call, somebody immediately picked up the phone, which is already a surprise. And another thing is the line is so clean. It's like there's no background noise. It's like, it doesn't sound like a call center, right? Those cues immediately tell the customer it is somehow AI. But, we heard some hilarious call conversations, like the one person called and first asked a question, are you a bot? And then, we have a few experiments. One of the experiments says, I'm here to help you. And then he got convinced, this may be a human. He immediately said, sorry. And then went on with the conversation. But it tells you, people just find all kinds of signals, right? And I think that, we are very early in terms of understanding where's the right boundary. But our true belief is it's less about, whether people think, I'm interacting with the AI or not. It's all about trust. If people know they're interacting with an AI, but at the same time, they can see the AI is really, truly understanding their problem and is capable of solving that problem, that trust makes the AI not irrelevant.
Yeah.
So it's actually one of the, I'm going to, just to be like, one of our pillars of ethical AI is you should know you're talking to an AI. Mm-hmm. So I don't agree with these experiments, and maybe we'll tell it later in the conversation. I think to build trust in the AI and to build honesty, you should say who you are at the outset. Strongly believe.
Yeah, I think so. And I think also but even despite that, I think talking about accents. I mean, sometimes people like when they find a similitude to someone they're talking with. Maybe my bias would be to like someone who speaks my accent and maybe have a conversation on that, or maybe have a type of humor that maybe appeals to me or not. So I think these are interesting things that, despite thinking about AI or not, knowing it's an AI, I think there will be probably more experiments on figuring out how to better create that.
I have an extension to what's being, and it's less about voice, but I think we are encumbered by the previous generation user experience. I mean, one of the things we think about a lot is that, and we see the data for it, is the previous gen AIs were pretty bad. And when people see it, it's like, I know this is bad, agent representative, and there is this problem that there's a hill to climb. There's bad experiences. So how do you unlearn that? And one of the areas is, as a result of that, it's not that you want to trick them. It just needs to feel new. It needs to feel like it's different from the previous generation, and that's sometimes in software, it's user experience and voice. There's different ways of approaching this problem, but I think it's not just a tech problem. It's a user experience problem to kind of make people feel I am dealing with something new and the quality is much better. Therefore, I should give it a chance.
Question for you, Jonathan, from the audience on handling regulatory areas, including HIPAA compliance and things like that. How do you deal with that? And data privacy as well.
Yeah, this is a big problem and it's getting worse. So, I mean, there are obvious ways to do it. So we're HIPAA compliant, SOC 2, PCI, and a lot of it has to do with this downstream sub-processor. So us, like everyone else, use third-party AI vendors, and they have to have those certifications. And so that's something you sort of have to pay attention to. I think there's a lot of increased awareness about what data is being sent to those downstream processors. So one of the things we've been focused on is, as part of our responsible AI process, besides announcing that you're a bot, when we do sub-processor selection, we always make sure they don't log, they don't train, like that we're siloing that data that we send to them, and we have to pay extra for that from our downstream processors. And so if you're an enterprise, you should be asking, what are, Mr. Vendor, what are you doing with your downstream sub-processors? And this whole tree, big challenge, and I think we have a lot yet to come in this space.
Cool. Maybe with that, I'll ask you a final question, and let me see if there's any questions from the audience to ask. Next week is Halloween. And so if you were to dress up as something that represents AI as Halloween, what would that be?
The ghost of Clippy.
With the sound effects? Yes. The ghost of Clippy.
With the ghost of what?
Clippy.
Oh, the ghost of
Clippy from Outlet. Remember Microsoft, the little Clippy thing that everyone hated?
The
first AI bot. The first AI
figured out the age of those who laughed.
Anyway, who doesn't know what Clippy is?
A few don't know.
It's a generational thing, I guess.
It's a generational thing. And I also, not only I remember Clippy, I also met the lady who invented Clippy at Microsoft.
So I'll be that lady. That's what Halloween. What about you, JJ?
I'm not very inventive. I'll just come as myself and tell people I'm myself's digital twin.
Very good. That was a little scary, I would say Grandma Siri. What's that? I couldn't hear you. Say it again.
Well, with that, thank you everyone for coming. I see lots of other questions on the chat, but on the group, so I'll invite you to come and talk with the panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.